We are live. Hello and welcome to Product Lessons, a podcast channel where we talk to product leaders from all over the world and learn from them how they build and manage world class software products. Before I introduce my guest today, I just want to let you all know that this podcast is in four channels video in YouTube if you're watching now. I also have audio only channel, which is Spotify, SoundCloud, and Apple iTunes. The links are mentioned below in the description. So if you like these conversations, do consider hitting subscribe. I have some very cool guests coming up, including Marty Kagan next month for the second time. Also, hit me on up on Twitter. It's Product Lessons. I'm more active there and I engage more there than any other social media platforms. So, with that, let me have the privilege and honor to introduce my guest tonight. He is Farbod Saraf. He's the lead product manager at Myro, also more popularly known for his product alignment document that became hugely viral. And that's how I got to know about him, and that's how I reached out to him as well. Now, who doesn't know Myro? It is such a life savior for hundreds and thousands of companies all across the world to to collaboratively work in remote setting. Just yesterday, we finished our quarterly development planning, and we did all of that with Myro with our teams across the globe. So I've been a big fan, and not just me. The 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 way to see this is the explosion of growth in customers that Myro has had witnessed and also led to the growth of the company. So they moved from 300 to 900 employees very fast. So I'm here with Farbod to talk about how they navigated and negotiated this growth, what were the product challenges, what were the lessons, and also to talk about the product alignment document. So we have quite a number of topics in hand. So with that, let's welcome Farbod. Hi, Farbod. Welcome to Product Lessons. How are you doing today?
Good, good. Thanks, Ravi, for inviting me, and thanks for all the kind words. I'm happy that Miro could help you with your planning.
Miro has been helping us for quite some time, especially became a big fan. It's such a it just it relieves such a big pain point, and I just wanted to know from you that did Myro's, is it called Myro or Miro? First of all, let's
Uh,
clarify that.
it's Miro, yeah. Actually, it's a good question because it's one of those stories similar to Jira or Jira, but this is Miro. The
This is
way to
Miro.
remember it's pronounced similar to hero.
Ah,
Yeah.
it's pronounced similar to hero. Got it. Nice, interesting. Um, so help me understand. So did Miro's explosive growth from 300 to 900 happen during the pandemic?
Yes, that happened during the pandemic. I think Miro was already on a good growth trajectory, but of course, the pandemic accelerated the shift to remote working, and
Got
of
it.
course, that played a good role in the growth as well, which I think happened in many of the tech companies. In general, the digitization increased during
Right.
pandemic, and Miro was one of them.
That is so true. But what was the time frame like from 300 to 900? How many months did it take?
So we just passed 1,000 employees.
I see.
And when I joined in May 2020, which means roughly a year and a half ago, we were 300 people.
Wow.
So I would say the company did roughly we basically tripled our headcount within 1 year.
Wow. But it's one thing to grow rapidly, especially because your product is so popular and the success was triggered because of the pandemic. But the other thing is to hire for all these people on time, right? So that is the biggest challenge because of course you are enjoying the growth, but how do you hire so fast? So did you so my wife is also into HR, so she will be very keen to know how did you hire so fast?
So I think it's about making hiring a goal. And once everyone understand the importance of hiring in such a hyper growth stage, then they do invest their time and they do give an extra care to hiring because during the hyper growth, there are a lot of opportunities to capture. and and you want to capture them as soon as possible because you might miss the time frame.
Right.
And within those periods, you can't do it all by yourself. And one of the best thing you can do as a multiplier is to hire people.
Right.
And this might go to an extent that in some cases you might spend half of your week in writing job description, hiring, onboarding, and coaching, which
Right.
is a balance that I never experienced before. But when I joined Miro, I think for the first couple of months, that was the sort of balance that I had, which half of my time would go into hiring and the other half into actual focus work, which can be
Wow.
challenging, but I think is absolutely necessary for the hypergrowth period.
Yeah, I know of at least 5 people who had their job profile changed to some roles in Myro. So if I know of 5 people, just imagine how it is. So is this a global recruiting, or it's mostly in Germany? First of all, is Miro a German company or?
No, so Miro is based in San Francisco, but we do have different hubs across the world.
Got it.
So we have in Amsterdam, we have in basically Berlin, we have in Austin, and some others.
Got it.
So we are a distributed company, so we have hubs. It's not fully remote company. We
I
do
see.
have hubs. It is that we have offices. Recently, we opened one in Japan, and so forth.
And but which is your is that like, does it still have a headquarter, or you would not qualify to call a hub as a headquarter?
Yes, so our official headquarters in San Francisco. But
Got it.
again, it depends on, for instance, some of the product teams are in Amsterdam, some of the product teams are in Berlin, and again, it's depending on the product area, depending on the basically the in which function it is. It might be distributed across different countries.
So are the hubs based on product areas, or a single product area could be distributed across different hubs?
Uh, we are trying to have people that their work relates to each other close together.
Got it.
So most likely people from the same product areas are within the same hub. But of course, there are sometimes exceptions, and also people from the same function. Sometimes they're in the same hub, sometimes they're distributed. So yeah, but roughly, if you are supposed to work closely with each other, we prefer to have you in the same hub. But if
Got it.
for some reason that's not possible, we prefer to have you in the same time zone at least.
Got it. Yeah, it makes things simpler. Before we get into the details of how did you restructure your teams to navigate this growth, I would like to understand your role. So when you joined a year and a half ago, as you said, so what was your role and what is your role now?
Yeah, sure. So I joined Miro around a year and a half ago into a product stream called Platform. And the mission of Platform is to make Miro a sort of ecosystem of creators by providing tools to developers so they can build apps and integrations on top of Miro on one end. And we also take care of the distribution of those apps on the other end to make sure that Miro users can access those apps and be more productive. So that's roughly the mission of the product stream that I'm part of.
And Miro also, so do you have multiple products, or Miro that I know of as a collaborative tool, that is the only product?
Yes, that is the only product. Along the way, we have acquired some other products, which later they incorporated inside Miro. Uh, but Miro, just in general, is just one product, which is the uh, digital whiteboarding tool that you know.
Got it. Excellent. And if I may ask, if you would want to reveal how many users do we have now for Miro?
So it's plus 20 million.
20
Um,
million. Wow,
yeah,
massive.
the exact number I don't know because it's growing so fast. It might be already way above that, but
Got
the
it.
last number that I knew was 20 million.
Got it. So with this kind of scaling, I'm sure there are technological scalability challenges as well, isn't it? So you might have ramped up your, say, server space, or maybe re-architecture yourself. So were you aware of any of these challenges that you had to navigate for this on the tech side of things?
Yeah, sure. I think no company would go through such such hyper growth without facing growth challenges inside the basically the tech part. And I think one of the things that Miro has done great was recognizing this risk early on, early in the hyper growth, and putting the right processes and teams in place to ensure that uh, there is no major risk. So, as an example, we do have a product stream dedicated to reliability and stability of the product, and
Got it.
that was formed after pandemic when the growth was accelerated. And I think that plays a sort of big role in ensuring that Miro stays stable during this time.
Got it. Got it. So, would you call it a SRE, like site reliability team or something of that sort, right?
No, I would simply call it the reliability and scalability product stream, and they are we do have product streams for really like product areas. This is an engineering product stream, but we run it similar to product team. So they
Ah,
would
got it.
they yes they would be having basically product counterpart, which normally is a highly technical product person or mostly engineers that they wear the hat of product, but they do treat reliability and scalability as a product.
That's nice. So they might not have actual product managers managing it because it's not user facing, maybe. But so what you're saying is still have the product mindset with some of the leads.
Absolutely, it's totally run like a product team. So because
Got
at
it.
the end of the at the end of the day, the performance is also somewhat of a feature that user value brings user values and users care about.
Got it.
So we do prefer to treat it as a product feature.
Got it. And how many? So how is Myro structured in terms of product teams? Are they all cross-functional teams like squads, or maybe some light on that would be helpful.
Sure. Yes, Miro teams are all cross-functional, and the structure of the product organization is we have different product streams, and example of a product stream is use case streams or horizontal stream, which is about ensuring that the horizontal experience of the product is preserved for all type of personas. So they are only focused on making sure that the basic whiteboarding features are there, regardless of for which use case you use Miro. There's another stream called use cases, and that stream is responsible for building specific features for specific use cases. Let's say, for instance, for meetings and workshop, or for uh, design and research, or other use cases that you can see on our website. And next to that, we have product stream like enterprise, which is dedicated to serve the enterprise audience. We have another product stream called growth, which is responsible for product growth led features. And of course, as I mentioned, we also have platform stream, which is about platformization of Miro. So that's basically how we see product areas.
Got it.
And in every product stream, there are multiple product groups. And within every product group, we have multiple product teams. And within every product team, we have a PM, multiple engineers. I mean, of course, there are some exceptions depending on the team, but roughly the structure is one PM, one designer, a few engineers. And of course, some teams have QA, some teams might have data directly working in the team, and so forth.
Got it. And then there is a mid level PM like you, that PM lead. Is that how it is, or like you
Yes,
have
so
you? Yeah,
the
go ahead.
product lead, yes. So product lead are basically the group PMs, group product managers, where they are leading a group of product inside on a stream. And normally in every product group, you have a couple of PMs that are reporting to this group PM.
Got it. And how many First of all, how many teams did you say you have? So with all these horizontal growth platform,
Uh, I don't know specifically on top of my mind,
yeah,
so it's
but
a
I mean,
hard question to answer.
roughly, is it around like 10 teams, 15 teams, or more?
Within every stream, you mean?
No,
Within every product stream, we have a few product groups, and within every product groups, we have a couple of product teams. So
got it.
that's how you can do the math. I think probably every product stream end up with, in some cases, 10 product teams, sometimes 20 product teams, sometimes 30. So it really differs. And of course, it depends on where you are in the journey. Maybe in 1 or 2 years from now, every product stream gonna have way more product teams than where we are today.
Got it. But roughly, how many product managers then? You would not know.
That's Yeah, that's also a hard question because Miro grows so fast. It is hard to know exactly how many product teams. But I think at some point when I checked, it was maybe 30. But I'm sure this number is outdated, and it should be definitely more now.
Yeah. So the reason I asked this is I'm curious to know when a company explodes like this, how do you maintain a product culture? Because
Yeah,
how do you talk? How do you collaborate? How do you decide strategy? How do you ensure that you all follow a similar product strategy? I have worked in very large organizations like
yeah,
Autodesk, 10,000 people, and then in that organization there are it's a mix of many organizations, so there is no consistency. Okay, so there are functional units who have their own culture. So I just wanted to know, does every hub has its own product culture, or do you still work collaboratively creating a consistent culture?
yeah. So yes, we do have a consistent culture, and we do have. I think everyone is moving in the same direction, so everyone is more or less following the overall company strategy. So the company strategy is there, and everyone knows that we need to contribute to that company strategy. But what, as a product group or as a PM in general, what you would do to move the needle to unlock business values, that you have the freedom to choose. You have the freedom to choose which set of problem you want to focus on, uh, and what type of solution you want to come up with. So there is, in that sense, no top-down approach of telling teams what to build. Back to your question about culture, I think that might be also a good bridge to the product alignment framework. I think that also help to ensure that PMs are going through a similar set of questions that we care about as a company when it comes to product discovery, both in terms of problem and opportunity discovery, but also the solution discovery. And also we have a place for product launch retros within the same framework. So at the end of the day, all the PMs are going through the same path for launching product features and everything. Again, with all the freedoms to choose which problem to focus on and which solution to pick.
Got it. So I'll come to the product alignment document. That will be the meat of this conversation. So while you were talking about the streams, right? So you talked about horizontal experiences, use case stream. I found I was once attending one of your product talks, and Anna Boyarkina, she was one of the speaker also, and what was very what piqued my interest was her title was head of use cases. So very curious to know what that role is. I've never heard of it. I tried to Google head of use case. I don't think any other organization has that role. Could you explain what that role is all about?
Sure. So as I mentioned earlier, we have two product stream which might relate to each other. One is called horizontal, basically experience, which is about the horizontal experience of the product. What do I mean by that? Miro is a horizontal tool, and you can use it for anything that you want. As far as you need a blank canvas, similar to whiteboard, you can do anything you want on a whiteboard. On Miro, you can use it for your personal use cases. You can create a mood board, or you can even, I've seen people doing wedding planning or redesign of their home inside a Miro board. or playing games or doing your team planning or doing workshops. So there are a lot of possibilities, which makes this product a quite horizontal product.
Right.
At the same time, there are certain use cases that we as a company care about because we believe those are the areas that we can unlock great amount of user values. And therefore, as a company, we want to be focused on use cases. And the product stream where Anna is leading as a head of product is called use case product stream. And the teams inside that product streams are responsible to understand which features are highly contributing to the use cases that we care about as a company. What are the problems that users are facing within those use cases? And once they identify those, they can prioritize which one they want to focus on and which one they want to build solutions for. So that is a summary of the use cases tree.
What would be an example of a use case? Maybe I'm just trying to understand the difference between, say, creating a mood board or team planning, the horizontal experience. What would be an example of a good use case?
Sure. A use case can be meetings and workshops. So you go to you want to run a workshop with your team,
Right.
and that can be one use case. Another use case is you want to manage your project with your team. So you want to do your road mapping on Miro, you want to do some task tracking on Miro, you want to do Kanban. Another use case example is research and design. For instance, as a designer, you might want to create some mockups, or as a UX researcher, you want to consolidate your basically do your whole user research on Miro. So these are just some of the use case examples.
Got it. Got it. Excellent. I think having such a dedicated role for use cases is what makes a product great. So I think other companies should get inspiration from this. Um,
Thank you.
yeah. So let's dig down a bit on navigating the growth, as you said. So did you have in-house expertise to navigate this growth? Because I've always been fascinated by companies who start as small but suddenly explode. So did you like take help of, say, agile coaches to manage this growth, or was it all in-house? So maybe some insight on that. What was your experience? Because you have seen through that transition, right? So I'm sure there was some
Yes.
amount of chaos as well.
Yes, of course, every hyper growth comes with its own challenges. As I mentioned, the hiring that you need to spend a lot of time on it. Um, I think, yes, so there are a few parts uh, which I would like to touch upon. One is about the agile coaches that you mentioned. Yes, we do have agile coaches, and uh, they do help teams by activities like running workshop, helping teams to set their team principles, team goals, and in general, just helping them to run better and more effectively. And yes, we did have helps externally and internally during this hyper growth, both getting advice from people that they have seen these challenges, they have done it in the past, both in terms of hiring such people from the companies that they experience hyper growth in the past, but also having external advisors to help us basically navigate through this hyper growth. And I think next to that also is how you set your own processes, how you make sure that you're prepared for the next bump during that journey.
Right.
Because what is one thing which is quite special about hypergrowth is uh, you need to plan ahead. You need to plan when you're designing your processes. You need to plan 6 months or 1 year ahead,
Right.
because if you plan it, if you design your processes for your needs now, it's
Right.
gonna just get outdated within a couple of months, and you don't want to go through yet another change of process and everything. So you need to be able to see some of the risks that are coming early on, and that can happen by as mentioned, talking with external advisors or gaining knowledge by hiring people who have seen this before, and of course also yourself being conscious of that, what my team or our product group or product stream would need, or the whole product organization need 6 months from now or a year from now. And that imagination would help you to plan ahead. Because
Got
at
it.
the end of the day, some people call hypergrowth as a luck, but in this context, I would interpret luck as a definition of opportunity meets preparedness,
Preparation.
which the famous sort of definition of luck, which I strongly believe in. And I think that also happens across the hypergrowth. It's not only about the moment that hypergrowth happens, it's just a journey. And during that journey, at any moment, if you won't be prepared, you just miss the opportunities to further growth.
So what would be the key lesson for somebody listening who might come across such a growth trajectory in the future? What would be the biggest lesson that they can learn from Myro navigating the journey? So you said prepare from before, proactively prepare. But what else do you think would be the best lesson to learn from this experience?
I think for me personally, the biggest lesson that I learned was focus on multipliers, because it's quite tempting to just hop on any opportunity that come across your way. Because as I said, during the hyper growth, because you are growing fast, there's a set of opportunity that comes to you as well in terms of the need for certain features, or basically the opportunities are everywhere, and it's quite easy to get distracted. But the harsh prioritization is key, and what I would prioritize are multipliers. And by multipliers, I'm talking about things that would have a higher return than other things. And a very good example of multipliers are hiring the right people, or in general hiring, because it's easy for me, let's say as an example, as a PM or a product lead, to just focus on building and shipping products, because that's what a PM might be more passionate about. But at the same time, recognizing that I need to spend 30% of my time on hiring, because then I can have more team member on board, more PMs on board to help. That is, I think, quite important.
So multipliers for features that have higher return on investment, I can understand. How would you associate multipliers with people that you hire? So what would qualify as a multiplier hire, maybe?
Yeah, that's a tricky question, but let me see if I can answer. So, as an example, just one example, because again, there might be a lot of answer to this question. One example is, if you want to hire, would it make sense to hire a group PM, and that group PM start hiring other PMs, or would it make sense to hire a PM first because something extremely high value burning needs to be done, and then hire the group PM? So it really depends on your specific situation, what has a higher priority in the hiring. But going back to hiring, there are two things here. A, prioritization of the multipliers in general. Hiring is one of the multipliers, in my opinion, in many contexts in hypergrowth. And B, if you are focusing a good amount of your time on hiring, what are you going to prioritize when it comes to hiring? Do you want to go down the road of top-down hiring, starting with a group PM and then hiring PM because you want to build a team top down, the strategy is not in place, and maybe you want to build a strategy for the group of product and then start hiring team? Or maybe you already have a good idea, but there's a specific team missing to capture that opportunity, then you might focus on just hiring one PM and start filling in that role. Just a simple example.
Got it. So when you hire PMs, what are some of the criteria that you look for in a role? Like, yeah.
Yeah, I think that also very depends, and it really depends on the product. It really depends on your strategy and where you are. For instance, now I'm working on a technical side of product, which is about building tools for developers. Of course, being passionate about technical topics and being able to understand technical topics and have meaningful conversation with your engineers on the technical trade-off is quite important. While for another uh, product group, that might be totally different. It might be extremely user facing, and you might want people, as an example, who are PMs who are strong in design, because maybe the product that you are focused on is quite design oriented. As an example, if you are focused on design use case, let's say. So I think it really depends on the product. And of course, there are certain generic traits that you would expect from every PM: being able to craft a good strategy, being user centric, being decisive, being able to do a good prioritization. And it also depends in which stage your company is. Of course, if you're in hypergrowth, maybe prioritization gets a higher value than maybe some other traits.
Got it. And how many PMs do you have under you?
So I just give you the generic rule because I think that would be more helpful for your audience. The At least that's my own personal opinion, that group PM should not have more than maybe 3 to 5 PMs. And the reason is because the group PM is quite a specific role. In most organization, the group PMs have, not in most, I don't want to generalize, but at least most of the companies that I have seen or I had personal experience with, the group PM also has its own team. So as a group PM, you have some IC responsibility as well as some management responsibility.
That sounds very fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially, yeah.
In that case, because of the fact that you need to be able to zoom in and out to act as an IC, but also as a leader, because of your management responsibility, it doesn't make sense to have more than 3 or max maybe 5 PMs. Otherwise, it's going to be hard to do a good work.
And if you're a passionate product manager, you would not be happy just managing people, isn't it? You. So I would love an arrangement where I'm managing a couple of PMs and also building products for a team. So that's a lovely arrangement to have.
Yeah.
So help me understand, how do you manage like, so when you have these multiple PMs under you, how do you measure the success of a good group PM or a good lead?
So I think in general, uh, I would like to just categorize the PM career ladders into 3 categories. And one is just an IC, where you're just a PM and you don't have any management responsibilities. Then you have group PM, which is mix of both. And after group PM is purely leadership, which is product director, head of product, MVP of product, and CPO. And if you're an IC, your success is measured through the success of your product. If you are a group PM, your success is measured through the success of the group of product that you have, as well as, of course, the personal success of the PMs that you have. And the more you go up that ladder, you're as successful as your direct reports. So once you're head of product, your success is purely measured around how successful your direct reports are, and of course your product stream that you are leading. So I think that's a distinction, how it shifts from the success of your product. The more you go up, it becomes your success is measured through the success of your direct report.
Got it. But so your PMs might be at varying levels of experience, right? So how do you, what are some of your rules of thumb to manage them so that they're taking the right decisions, they're building the right products? Uh, so I was talking to Brad Dunn, who is the chief product officer of Whisper in from Australia. I don't remember the city. I think Adelaide. So he mentioned that he has the culture of leadership in his organization where there is no way they are going to make decisions for the team. Okay, they are only going to provide direction, and that they should not be taking any decisions for their teams. The team should be empowered to take their own decisions. Even the PMs should be. So what kind of arrangement or dynamic do you have with your PMs? First of all, do you have a weekly sync with them, and how do you, if you see a certain experience missing, or the direction missing, or there's a gap and he needs coaching, how do you navigate that?
Yeah. So I think there's two part about this. One is um, about uh, how to guide that person to do a better job in basically on a day-to-day basis, and how to empower them. That's one area, which is you're mostly focused on the success of the product, not the success of person, but of course they are highly related to each other. And the second piece is about individual development plan, which again contribute heavily to the success of product, but at
Right.
the same time within the individual development plan that you're crafting for the direct report, then most of the focus is about growing that person.
Right.
And that means that you need to understand what are the wishes of that person, even if it doesn't contribute to the success of the product itself. Let's say you're managing a PM which has a passion to grow into, uh, let's say, another role, for instance, development. Or a good example is from myself, where I used to be a developer, and at some point I transitioned into become a product manager.
Right.
So you need to provide the you need to help them with that transition. You need to provide anything that would enable them to grow wherever they want to grow. It can be by either um, uh, basically providing them with coaching opportunities. It can be internal coach, external coach. It can be online resources or training or conferences, or
Right.
basically anything that they would need to grow to what they want to grow. But of course, the individual development plan should be mix of personal wishes as well as things that would contribute to the success of product.
Right.
So it's a quite good balance, but I think the main focus is the growth of the person within IDP.
Got it. Got it. Excellent. And you have weekly syncs with them, or how is it like?
Yes. So again, it depends on the team and the context. So I prefer to talk about different things that I have seen rather than my own specific case. Uh, in general, it's a good practice to separate the IDP conversation from the actual work session. So as an example, right now I have a weekly sync with my direct reports separately, but
Right.
at the same time we have a separate IDP scheduled for individual development plan, which
Right.
depending on a case, again, it depends on a personal situation, but it might be weekly, it might be bi-weekly, it might be monthly. In my case right now it's monthly. Uh, so yeah, it's very important. I just want to emphasize it's really important to keep these two things separate and not have just one-on-one where you touch upon IDP but also work topics, because you want to have dedicated time and focus for each of these topics.
Excellent. Thank you so much. That was quite insightful. Let's get to the hero topic of today, which is the product alignment document. I was so happy. I think it was last year, early last year, or early this year. I don't remember when you first revealed it. Was it late last year, or when was it when you shared the product alignment framework on LinkedIn for the first time?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because I don't remember exactly, but I think, yeah, it's probably somewhere maybe early this year, if I'm
Early
not
this year,
mistaken. I just need to look it up. Yeah, because first, of course, we rolled it out at Miro last year early on, but later I decided to just write about it and share it with the community.
right? Got it. So I will share the product alignment document here on screen, and then I want to dig deeper into it. So why don't you tell us the story of Inception? I'm sure it had its own evolution, isn't it? So it's not like the way it is now. So it must have gone through its own stages of maturity. But I would like to know the story of its origin, and how did it start, and what was the intent, and how did it evolve over time?
Sure. When I joined Miro, I think it was around May 2020. One of the things that actually helped me to understand the product culture at Miro was the product reviews. And for anyone in the audience who might not be familiar with product review, it's a panel where product people bring certain product artifact for review into that session. And depending on a company, it might differ what you bring to that panel. But at Miro, basically PM would come there and present different type of product decisions that they have made or different type of approaches they had in terms of discovery, and it was
And
great.
present to whom? Who is the
Yes,
reviewer?
good question. Uh, so the reviewer in that panel was everyone in the product guild, any basically the product manager, group product manager, or head of product, including our CEO, and of course with mix of some of the engineers. When I'm saying everyone, it doesn't mean like the whole Miro was in the same meeting, but everyone was invited to the meeting as an optional attendees where they could attend based on the topic. And of course, every session would have required attendees as well. So I don't remember how many of this thing that I'm talking about was there before this framework or not, because now it's sort of blended. Uh, but at least I remember product reviews was there. The only thing was there was no structured way of doing product discovery. So every team would take their own approach how they want to do product discovery, and it was it was on one hand good because it would come with a lot of flexibility, but at the same time, there were within some of the product reviews, I would notice that there are areas that some PMs are keep missing in their basically either in their discovery or presentation, and similar type of question would pop up from the audience, and the audience either can be their peers, or it can be head of product, or it can be CEO. And then I saw an opportunity. I noticed that with the hyper growth that we were going through, it's the right time maybe to create sort of guidance on how you conduct your product discovery, and also the importance of highlighting the importance of opportunity discovery before jumping to solution, especially in hyper growth environment. You just want to solve that problem because it's so tempting.
Multipliers, right?
Yes, yeah. You just want to, indeed, you just want to solve the problem as soon as possible, and that might bias you in terms of the opportunity discovery, and you might not explore different opportunities, and you might not even think that, oh, maybe that opportunity has a higher priority compared to this one.
So,
So
so
long
before
as,
before sorry to interject here, I would
sure,
like to know first of all. So different organizations have different styles of product review. So maybe we can start from that. What
yeah,
does a product review mean? What is an ideal mix of audience who should attend in the product review? And how should a product review be structured? What kind of topics should you bring into a product review? Maybe these
yeah,
fundamentals would be really really helpful, because there are so many companies who
sure.
have still not figured out to do this effectively.
Sure. So it's again, I don't think there is a single rule for all the companies, and every company should adopt their own processes based on their own needs. I can talk about Miro that this panel has been quite product centric. We do have engineering leads there. So starting maybe with the team that is presenting. So the team that has worked on that specific product discovery is going to be there when one of the team members is going to present, and it's mostly the product manager. And of course, it's worth mentioning that at Miro we have a presentation type of product reviews, because in companies like Amazon you have more of a
Right.
async. Yeah, it's not
Six pages.
async. I mean, yeah, everyone is just reading the artifact before they start discussing it, so there's no presentation in that sense. While at Miro, the PM, or in some cases it can be designer, again in special cases, or an engineer, might present the result of the product discovery. But the whole team that participated in that product discovery is there because they need to get feedback from others. So this is the team that present. Next to that, we have the audience, and the audience are mostly products, and the required attendees are either the product teams that have dependency on this specific feature that being presented, or a specific solution or problem that is being presented, or somehow if they relate to this basically discovery. Those are required attendees. We also have a sponsors. The sponsors means that the both engineering sponsor and product sponsor, and sometimes in some cases design a sponsor of a specific initiatives that they need to give thumbs up, thumbs down to, or provide feedback, most importantly, on the direction that the team is taking. And those are also required. So these are required attendees. Next to that, we have many optional attendees, including our CEO. Surprisingly, he's attending all of them, which
Nice.
is the best thing I have seen a CEO do, because CEO does, because it's with the fact that is a lot is happening and we are in hyper growth stage, and of course with the size of organization, it's easy to miss what's happening in product teams. And this is a perfect panel to understand what are the problems that teams are focusing on, what are the opportunities that are out there, which of them we are picking and why we are picking them, and what are the solutions that we are picking in solving them.
And are the decisions for go or no go for a certain opportunity discovery taken there?
Yes, that is correct. But I have to admit that I barely see any no-goes, because I think that the main reason behind this, we can talk about the template, but I think template covers enough questions for the team to focus on the right things. And once they focus on the right things during the discovery, I think they have enough information to make a sound decision on whether we should be focusing on this or not and which path to take. And because of the fact that they have way more context than their own sponsors, they already, I think, come prepared to that meeting enough to with the right basically decisions and direction. So you barely see that someone gets a thumbs down. There might be certain exception. For instance, market has changed so rapidly just right before presenting in a product review, then it no longer makes sense to for that approach. Then in that case, it's a thumbs down. But normally it's a thumbs up. The only benefit is having a lot of feedback during the session. There might be angles that you might have missed, or maybe because of your biases, because you have worked on that part of the product, you might not have seen certain things. But people with fresh eyes and different views comes to that meeting, and they provide very good feedback to you.
So what you are saying is, by the nature of the structure of the PAD, it is self-governing. That means you will be able to decide better than your stakeholders, isn't it?
That's
Um,
absolutely correct.
and while filling the document, if you see that this is not fitting the strategy or this is not the right initiative, you would not even present it to the stakeholders. Only if you see fit, you would present it in the review. And if you see fit, it is more likely to get a go. Then maybe it has been in maybe you miss a certain strategic context that on rare occasions might be highlighted by one of the stakeholders or the CEO, isn't it?
That is absolutely correct. What I want to add on top of that is the reason that this works is because there is a strong vision and a strategy in place at the company level, that everyone knows where we are heading. And because we have that, it acts sort of as a North Star metrics for us, that everyone knows that, okay, we are going toward that direction. And that's where we want to be as a company in 3 years. And therefore, when they are doing their product discovery, then they know which type of opportunities or problems they need to focus on that brings the highest contribution to our overall company strategy.
Got it. So this is not an exercise where an external stakeholder is minutely interfering with your product decisions. This is about having a healthy conversation about it. But still, the teams are empowered. The product managers and the product leaders are empowered to make their own decisions, isn't it? Is that
That
how it?
is absolutely correct. It's mostly about feedback rather than thumbs up, thumbs down. Of course, we have the thumbs on, thumbs down there, but in general, as I said, in very rare cases, I saw thumbs down. It's mostly just feedback and thoughts.
Got it. And how frequent are these meetings?
Right now, we have it weekly at Miro, and that's simply because we have enough demand for presenting discoveries happening by teams at Miro. It doesn't mean that other companies should do weekly, not at all. It's just simply because there are enough topics to be covered every week. We just decided to put a placeholder on our calendar, which is 1 hour per week. And of course, some weeks We might have more than we have it, sorry, for 1 hour. I don't know if I mentioned half an hour, but we have it for 1 hour. And sometimes if we have just one topic, which is normally half an hour, we just try to shorten that meeting. Sometimes it might go to 1.5 hours because we have three topics to present, but normally we don't. We try to keep it max to 1.5 hours in certain cases that we have three topics to be reviewed.
And what are the topics? Like there could be discovery topics of new ideas. Do you also have topics that you have already, say, features you have shipped, and now you are bringing back the insights of how they have succeeded, whether the success metrics were met, or it is only about new features and new ideas?
It's about both. So there are different category of things. It can be a fully brand new feature. It can be an existing feature, but needs major improvements. Therefore, it requires proper opportunity problem discovery and also proper solution discovery. That's basically the second category. And the third category is when the team, in general, for all the topics that comes to product review, we have the third phase, which is called product launch retro. And in that sense, once the product is launched, the teams reflect back on how whether the success criteria that they defined earlier was achieved. If not, what was the learning, or even if it was achieved, what was the learning, to share it with the broader audience. And sometimes, because of the, not sometimes, actually many times, because of the nature of experimentation, it's quite important to revisit your solution discovery again and bring it back for presentation. So if there are a small experimentation, you don't even need to bring it to product review. But if you are really going back to solution discovery to do a big revamp, it might make sense to do another solution discovery for it and present it. Of course, having said that, we are not bringing everything to product reviews. It would be very consuming, and it wouldn't make sense. Maybe we can talk about also like what type of things comes to product review and
Yeah, so
how
I
that.
will I will share the PAD document now. I just wanted to know, yeah, what type of features or initiatives should be, how small or big should be the features to qualify for a product, for a PAD.
Yeah. So in general, I think that rule also had shifted because we had a lot of internal discussion what should come to product reviews and whatnot. So in general, I think we are relying on the judgment of PMs itself, whether it makes sense to bring it to product reviews or not. But as a guidance, we first told something like a very generic rule, as a rule of thumb. If something requires more than 3-4 weeks of development effort, therefore it might worth bringing it to product reviews. But of course, that definition is not enough because at the same time, if something doesn't have cross stream, uh, it doesn't require cross stream collaboration, or if it doesn't require, it doesn't have any cross stream impact, then it might be very focused on a specific area. Therefore, it doesn't need to go to our global product reviews, because we also have a concept of local product reviews which can happen within your product stream. Then you don't bring it in such a big panel that the whole organization is there, including the all the head of products and CEO. So if something is really related to your own product stream, you just bring it to the stream review. If it's more cross a stream and has a wider impact, or if it's highly strategic and carries some strategic risk, you want to bring it to that panel. So at the end of the day, we rely on PM's judgment what worth bringing to product review. Having said that, we have a centralized place to have all the topics, and the stream heads or our CPO or even our CEO or even other team can request, even your peer can request, hey, can you bring this actually to the product review, because it has impact on our team. So other teams and also leadership team can request for a specific product reviews which were not supposed to come to the global product review to come there as well.
Got it. Excellent. You mentioned So for PAD, a feature should be as large as something that needs 3 to 4 weeks of development. You would not create a PAD for smaller enhancements. Is that true?
Uh, Actually, as a PM, you are free to create PADs even for the things which are small. And as a PM, even you have freedom to not create PAD for something which is more than 4 weeks, let's say 6 week, as far as it's only related to your team, doesn't have any other impact, or maybe it's a low impact in terms of a strategy. Maybe there is no reason even to bring it. So again, we rely on judgment of PMs, and also a lot of PMs are using the PAD for the smaller initiatives that they don't even bring to product review, because simply they just like the structure, and they might of course skip some of the section that they might not find helpful for a smaller initiative, but
Got
they still use the template for their team to have everyone inside the team aligned.
Got
And
it. It helps them in better in the discipline of better thinking, better decision making, and structuring, even if you don't want to share it with anybody, isn't it?
yeah, that's
So
absolutely correct, because at the end of the day, if you want to collaborate with your engineering partners and your designer within your team, everyone knows to know what's the problem or opportunity that we are working on, and who's the audience, and why we are solving it, and what are the success metrics. These are really like base of the base, all of the things that are in the PAD. And for having a proper cross functional collaboration, you would need to be aligned on this topic. Even if you don't write it down, at least you need to figure it out in your head, and you need to discuss it with the team.
got it. So I have your I think this is a blog. This looks like
It's a Substack block, yes.
yeah, this is Substack. Yeah, okay. So you have your own domain link to Substack, is it? Okay,
Yeah,
nice.
yeah, you can have custom domains on Substack.
Excellent, excellent. All right, so this is how it looks like. So you talk about a product alignment approach, consists of a single document called PAD, as well as ceremonies that go along with the document. And then, okay, let's look at the three pillars. So PAD consists of three main pillars listed below. So the first pillar is the problem space, opportunity, problem framing, and then the solution space, and then there is the post launch recap. So this is what you mentioned, right?
Yeah,
um okay. So maybe if you can again recall what these three pillars are.
yes, sure. So maybe if you scroll down to the actual template, that would be easier to,
Should
if
I
you,
click on this?
no, if you go even further down, I mean, this is a Miro template that you can use if you want to reuse. But if you go further down, I even, uh, at the end of this article,
Okay, here.
I put the section so it's easier to read here. So as you mentioned, it consists of three parts, the product alignment document. And the first one is opportunity and problem framing. This is about the everything about the problem and opportunity. So any product development starts with a problem to solve or an opportunity to capture. Sometimes it's a problem to solve, sometimes it's an opportunity to capture. And the first part is about what is the problem statement, just describing what is the problem that we are trying to solve, or what is the opportunity that we are trying to capture.
So help
The
me
sec
understand. Is I was assuming every opportunity is actually solving a problem, is it not?
So yeah, they can be, actually you can interpret it that way as well, that solving a problem in itself is an opportunity.
Opportunity, yeah.
But sometimes there's a specific problem identified and you want to solve it. But
Hmm.
sometimes it's not necessarily a problem, but there's an opportunity to be captured, and you just want to capture that opportunity because you believe there's an opportunity there. So that's basically a bit of different in those areas.
Got it.
And then the next section would be audience, like for whom we are solving it. There's a why section, which is actually quite important. It's about why we are focusing on this specific problem and not others. Because as I said, for every team, there's a wide range of problems to focus on. Why we are focusing on this. As an
Yeah,
example, because
it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity cost, isn't it? If you're solving something, then
it's
you are not solving something else. So
yes, absolutely, fully agree with you. So it, for instance, does it contribute to our company strategy and vision? Does it relate to any of OKRs that we defined, or is it leading to an important competitive neutralizer or differentiator, etc.? And then we have success metrics, like which are like, how do we know if we solve this problem? Comparative research, in case of a feature is a competitive neutralizer, then you want to describe here how other competitors solved it, because your competitors also have done their own research, and it might give you some ideas like what approaches they took in solving it. Sometimes you might want to just get inspired by them. Sometimes you just know what they have done, but you want to take fully another approach. Regardless, it's important to be aware what is out there, and that's about basically this dedicated part.
No, this is also very important for me. So I also always add comparative research. The reason is, if I'm building something for the first time and that has been solved in the market, I would
Yes.
want it to be a better than what is existing in the market. Otherwise, what's the point, right? Because
Yeah.
if you're not benchmarking yourself, and if you don't see that, then you are missing the point, and your experience might be inferior than what is already present in the market. So I would rather identify the benchmark and try to make build a better product than what is available in the market. So it's very important for me as well. Excellent.
Absolutely. Or even in certain cases, you know what's available on the market, but you don't want to be the best solution on the market. You might be aware that I would never reach that level of quality because that's not my priority right now, to
Got it.
focus to make it as best as the competitor, because that's not our focus. But it's good to be conscious about it and know whether you want to basically be better than the competitors, or you want to be at the same level or even lower. Just being aware what they have done, but you just want to solve it in an easier way because it's not a strategy a strategy uh, a priority for you.
That's a very good point again. So there might be customers who might leave you to the competitor just for that feature, not at the same level of quality, but if you can solve it, you can plug the gap, not the same experience. They are with you for your entire product, but if you can plug this gap, this feature parity, they might stay with you. They don't
Uh,
want they don't expect the same level of quality, but just having that feature
yes.
is good enough. So yeah,
Or
that's one. Yeah,
yes, or even in certain cases, you know that not offering it might, by not offering it, you might lose some users or some deals. But
right.
even that might be fine, unless if you are conscious of what you are doing and if it's a deliberate decision that we know that the cost of missing this feature is losing this amount of customer, but we make this decision because that's not a priority, that might be even acceptable in certain contexts. So it really depends on the context on a product.
That's a very good one. So you should not be shooting in the dark. You should be aware of where you are. That is much
Yes.
better than not being aware of where you are. So
Yeah,
excellent. Cool.
for sure. And the last part, which is actually quite important, is potential solution directions. So it might bring up a question why we are going to solutions here, because
Yeah.
we are not in the solution space yet. But this is not a full-fledged solution discovery. This is just doing some very high-level research on what potential solution direction we might take in solving this problem. So it's about solution direction. That's very different than having a specific solution. It's just a direction. So let's say you want to go from France to Italy, and you know that your solution direction can be either taking a train or taking a bus or plane, and it's good to have that understanding in the problem discovery, because once you get into solution discovery, then you have to investigate, okay, which of them I want to focus on more, etc., etc. And having it here would help when you bring it to the product review. When you bring your problem discovery result to product review, you might receive some feedback and suggestion. Actually, there are different type of solution direction that you might focus on. For instance, you can take I don't know, like a jet from France to Italy. And in that sense, when you start your solution discovery, you already collected some feedback from a broader group, like what are the direction that we think uh, might have a good potential for focusing on.
Got it. And then is the solution framing. But before we begin solution framing, my question to you is it wise to fill this PAD with both problem framing and solution framing? The reason I ask this is, so we have a similar structure at Price Hubble, but I don't move to solution framing till we get a pass of some kind in the problem framing. Say, for example, I do not want to involve my teams on the solution framing to brainstorm, because the idea might not pass if it does not have the requisite business case. It might not be aligned with the strategy. So I would not waste my time in solution framing. How do you think about that?
So that is exactly what we are doing at Miro as well. So we have the template is all in same document, but the product reviews that we are scheduling is specific to one section of the stock. So
Nice.
we have three different type of product reviews. We have either opportunity or problem review, we have solution review, and then we have post-launch recap review, and each of
Nice.
them is being done separately. Yeah.
Lovely. Lovely. Thanks. Excellent. So let's move to solution framing then.
Yes. And the solution for framing is all about the solution that we want to pick. So there's a section about proposed solution, which is going to be most likely one of the solution directions that you outlined in the previous section. And then here you can also list what are the rejected solution and why. So out of those solution direction that you listed above, you decided to not go for some of them. What were the reasons?
So help me understand. What is your readiness for filling this section? So, do you involve your teams, say engineers and developers and UX team,
Yeah.
to do some brainstorming before they can fill this up, or how is it? What is the level of
Yes.
effort here?
This is absolutely cross collaboration. The whole template, like even in the problem opportunity framing, it's a full cross collaboration. Start So in some companies they might have the problem opportunity framing only across collaboration between a researcher, designer, and PM, not necessarily engineer, because it doesn't involve building anything in the problem discovery. But it's important to involve your engineering counterparts, or at least engineering leads, within those discussions, because they can provide good feedback along the way. They have a different point of view from engineering angle. They can also contribute to the solution direction that you listed out there. And in general, engineers are creative people,
Always, always. I
like
have the
any
best
other
ideas
cross-function.
come from engineers. My best ideas come from developers.
Absolutely, they solve problem all day long. I mean, also designers and everyone else. So why not having them involved and everyone bring their own mindset and view into this? So this is a fully cross functional collaboration, the whole template.
But help me understand. So your
Yeah.
engineers and developers are already busy building the features of the current sprint, right? Um,
Yes.
how, how do you allocate time to pull them out to involve in all these new ideas that are coming in? How do you manage these two worlds?
So it really depends on a product area or product feature or initiative that you're focused on, how heavily you want to involve your engineering. In a lot of cases, having just your engineering lead, it can be either tech lead or team lead, as part of this discussion would be enough. In some cases, you want to have a broader group. For instance, if you are building a developer product, those are the best audience to get feedback from. Therefore, what you need to do, you need to, of course, dedicate time for the discovery work during your planning as well. So you can't just plan everything till the max and at the same time also expect people to do discovery, because a proper discovery also takes time. But because it is valuable, I think it's justified to spend time with the whole team on it, because the cost of not doing it with a team might uh, cost you a full reward later on when you bring them on board.
And they feel empowered, right? So when they are
Of course.
participating in the solution side of things, because you're not pushing them a ready-made solution to go and code, because that just makes them mercenaries and not missionaries. So I like that. Sorry, I'm deviating a bit, but I'm curious to know how is the solution fleshed out? How much is the participation of the developers in solution space than the UX and PM doing the brainstorm workshops for the solution and passing it to the team? I just wanted to understand the contribution of the developers. How deep is the contribution to the solution side?
So, can you maybe elaborate on your question? You mean how they collaborate across this doc?
Like there is a feature that came, okay, it's a big feature, and then in not empowered, in less empowered product teams, the product manager and the UX, they form a team, and then they do the discovery, and then they do workshops, they come up with prototypes, mock-ups, and then they decide what the solution is. And when the sprint planning happens, they pass this solution, and all the developers need to do is just implement the solution. They don't have any say, they don't participate
Mhm.
in the solutioning exercise. They do
Yeah.
not bring in their own creative stuff. So I just wanted to but I know there are other companies where developers also participate in brainstorming solution. They
Mhm.
have different ideas coming from, so it's not just the UX lead or the PM who is defining the solution.
Yes. Yeah. So, if you're asking how we do it, like
Yes.
in terms of tooling, we just do this through document collaboration and sometimes
No, no,
sync collab.
not how. I'm not asking how. I'm just asking whether you do it or not. Whether you involve the developers also to brainstorm in solutioning.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So that's exactly what I meant, that this whole document, crafting it is a cross-functional work.
Got
And
it.
cross-functional work meaning that you're doing it with your designer, sometimes with your researcher, sometimes with your data analyst, and of course developers and anyone else who might be relevant actually. And the way that you do it, it can be either through workshop, brainstorming session, async document collaboration, that someone is dropping thoughts and another person trying to fill in some other area. So yeah, it's pretty free form, but in
Got it.
general, it's always a cross functional collaboration.
And the way you manage it is by planning some time out from the sprint work in this discovery workshops, right?
Yes, absolutely, yes. Yeah, you need
Excellent.
to
Thank you.
dedicate time for it. Yeah.
That was very helpful. Cool. And then there is out of scope. That means what is not part of the solution. And I always love this because it can otherwise result in scope creep. The scope
Yeah.
can go out of hand. So you define your boundaries. And then there are dependencies, risks, and mitigations. So dependencies could be dependencies with other teams, I suppose, isn't it? Or
Yes, that is correct. So dependencies that are on other teams that needs to be resolved. Yeah.
got it. And risks and mitigations. And help me
Yeah.
understand the GTM strategy. Why is this important in the solution side?
So it's about the go-to-market side of the product launch, and I think it's very important because it touches upon a few things. One is about the release plan. So how are you planning to release this? Will you have a private alpha? Or will you be first testing it within your organization? And then gradually roll it out maybe to some beta tester or and later a wider group. So it's just outline what are the phases, which is quite important because you need to also plan for it. And a lot of experimentation plans might be included in this section as well. And also, it's also about how you bring your feature to the market. How are you going to market it? And of course, we don't include everything here. Mostly, we have a link to the actual GTM plan in another document, which is a proper, comprehensive go-to-market plan, which is crafted by our product marketing teams, and also the in some cases partnerships. So yeah, and it has its own template and set of work. So we don't try to bloat this document with everything. Sometimes we just add a link to other docs.
Exactly. So I have had occasions where my we call it opportunity assessment document. So,
Mhm.
but it is very similar to this. And sometimes when I have lots of information, it gets bloated. But what you are saying is specific information can be linked to a separate document so that it's not broken.
Yes, and even in some cases, we have a separate PRD, which is this document links to that because the PRD specifically includes a lot of details about the solution. or we have also engineering design documents, which includes a lot of details, and they are not specifically here. They're just linked to them is here. Or we have like Figma files, which include the full solution or sometimes prototypes. We just add the links here.
All right. Okay. Okay. Let me ask this. Otherwise, I will forget. What is the document format for this? Like, where do you? Is it a Word document? Is it a wiki, or how do you
Good
maintain?
question. The teams have the freedom to choose which tool they want to use in this sense. We are trying to standardize certain things because it might be more convenient to have just one tool for doing things. But I have seen teams using Google Docs for doing this. I've seen teams using Miro template for doing this. Sometimes Confluence pages. So it's and maybe also some other tools. So uh, one of the bless of working at Miro is you can choose your own tooling. Of course, not every tooling, but at least the tools which are accepted by the company. But I think, of course, that comes also with a certain cost. So we are moving, especially as we are growing more and more, we are trying to standardize certain things.
Got it. All right. I'm being mindful of your time here as well. So let's complete the third pillar, which is post-launch recap.
Yeah.
Maybe some guidance there.
Yeah, it's a short part which is about once the feature is launched and the result is collected, we reflect back and see whether we were achieving our goals based on the success metrics that was defined earlier and also the actual results, and what are the learnings that we can take to improve further. And what is special about this part is sometimes people present the post-launch recap with some of the changes that they are planning to revise and relaunch again, sort of experimentation. So they present this part and the new solution discovery again together. Sometimes the team might present the outcome of experimentation here and not the full launch. Sometimes the full launch is going to be presented here. It's up to the team what they want to bring to the panel, to which is help like what they believe is helpful to be actually reviewed and presented.
Got it. And what if you don't meet any of the success metrics and the product is did not succeed? What happens then?
And actually that's that's the reviews that actually we love a lot, because there were certain reasons that we didn't achieve our goals, and in that sense we want to learn from it, and not only us but also other teams. So we would strongly appreciate product teams to bring, especially the launches that the goals were not achieved.
And then what is the decision? So do you
Oh,
live
this
with the feature, or do you pull out the feature, or how do you kill the feature? What do you do?
So that's exactly what I referred a bit earlier, that it's up to the team what they want to do next. Either sometimes it might lead to a new solution discovery, or either it might be they already know what type of changes they want to make and they will do. Or in some cases, they might leave it as is because the goal is not achieved, but the result is somewhat acceptable and it doesn't work to go and rework everything. And in some cases, the experimentation might stop or the feature might get sunset. So there are a lot of different outcomes that might come out of this.
Excellent. This was wonderful. I have just last two questions quickly. I know we have
Sure.
overshot time. Um, as a product leader, how do you stop yourself from interfering when you have strong opinions, okay,
Yeah.
which is differing from your product managers? So they think differently, you think differently, but how do you maturely behave so that they don't yeah, how do you do that? Because you know for sure with your broader experience that you are right, maybe, okay, and the product managers think differently. How do you negotiate?
I think it's all about asking the right question, and this template is trying to help with that. So this template, especially the section like why we are focusing on this opportunity and not others, or why we rejected other solution, those are exactly the question that template addresses. And we are asking the teams to be data centric, so we want to avoid from having subjective discussions. And I think we rarely go into cases where we have to interfere and we have to uh, basically have long debates on why this is a wrong approach. Because I think if you ask the right question, if the data is there, and especially PMs, because they are domain expert, they have done their homework, and they know exactly what's happening. Plus, because of having a strong strategy in place, both at the company level and also at the product stream level, there is little room for interpretation. So, uh, yeah.
Excellent, Farbod. I know you have a meeting in 2 minutes, so I will let you go. I had one last question, but I will let you go. I'm very excited to hear
That,
Varun Parmal joined as the CPO of Myro. That was a big news. I hope my Miro goes to newer heights with him joining. But thanks again, Farbod, to
excellent.
join me and share tons of insights from you. This was really valuable, and I hope my listeners also enjoyed this conversation. Thanks
Yeah.
again.
Thank you very much, Ravi. It was great. Thanks.